I would like to take you back to a time. And that time was the 90s.
When I wake up in the morning and the alarm gets out of warning.
It was 1997 and my friends who lived across the road invited me over. I was 9 years old. We were going to watch a movie, but this was no ordinary movie. This was Scream. Several minutes in, I remember quivering behind the couch at the sight of Casey Becker's boyfriend being disemboweled. I was shocked and traumatized, but at the same time, I could not look away. And then I saw him. Ghostface. A costume so simple in its design and execution, but so terrifying at the same time. The sight of the mask haunted me for weeks afterwards. But at the same time, it was badass. The Scream phenomenon has been going strong since the first film's release back in 1996. And with the release of the sixth film in the franchise quickly approaching, I thought it'd be fun to look back on the origin of one of the most recognizable costumes in horror film history. What's happening, my fellow ghouls and ghoulettes, and welcome to the origins of how the Ghostface costume was brought to life. Stay tuned. Now before we get started, I just want to give a massive shout out to the amazing Douglas over at Drowned Boy Productions here on YouTube, who makes some incredible content revolving around Scream, but most notably, Scream masks, and essentially breaking down what masks were used in each film. Now I highly recommend checking out his channel, and I will leave the link down below. And with that being said, let's get to it. Now in the movie, the Ghostface costume is considered common and easily purchasable, making identifying the buyers difficult and creating the possibility for anyone to be the killer. Consisting of a rubber white mask with black eyes, nose, a mouth, and a black cloth-like material or hooded robe with tatters draping from the arms and a spiked trim at the base of the outfit. The Ghostface mask was first developed for novelty stores during the Halloween season between 1991 and 1992 by Funworld, as part of a series entitled Fantastic Faces. And the mask itself is known as the Peanut-Eyed Ghost. Dead set, I still remember seeing some of the OG masks, probably after Scream was released at my local store up at Westfield called Games and Things, and they had a huge stockpile of them. And if I had known back then, if my 9-year-old pea-brain had known, I would have stockpiled the whole inventory. Hindsight at its finest. The final design was approved by Funworld Vice President Alan Geller. Wes Craven claimed to have originally found the mask, but later clarified that he had misremembered the event and that it was all down to producer Marianne Maddalena. Marianne found it while inside a house during location scouting for the film. The house owners had it in one of their kids' bedrooms, but it was instead adorned with a white shroud. And this particular mask that Marianne found was the Fantastic Faces Weeping Ghost. So this is the OG. This is the one that essentially started it all. Maddalena brought it to the attention of Craven, who dismissed the initial thought of using the mask, as K&B were currently in the design phase of creating their own mask for the film. Plus, Craven didn't want to have to pay Funworld to use the mask. Craven asked Greg Nicotero and Howard Berger of design company K&B Effects to produce a mask specifically for the film based on the Funworld design, almost a parody of the original mask, but did not like the final result. And as you can see, here are some of the concept sketches that K&B submitted to Craven before trying their hand at replicating something very similar to the Funworld mask. The custom mask made by K&B Effects still appears in the scenes involving the murder of Casey Becker and Principal Himbry, as filming of these scenes completed prior to the finalization of the deal between Funworld and Dimension Films. And after Funworld and Dimension Films were able to complete an agreement for the use of the Ghostface mask, Craven was able to use the original design as he wanted. Funworld licensing director R.J. Torbett was given the task of naming the mask prior to its film debut, deciding on Ghostface with the blessing of Funworld owners Stanley and Alan Geller. Torbett felt it looked like a ghost in pain, believing it to be a unique design. The Ghostface design and title are still owned by Funworld to this very day. The initial script labeled the main antagonist as the Ghost Mask Killer, with no real specifications to its appearance. forcing Craven and his staff to produce the costume eventually worn by Ghostface as they were shooting. For the most part, the Ghostface was played by Dane Farwell, a stuntman who gave the character specific characteristics such as cleaning the knife after killing, also giving the stature a unique movement to the character. Fun fact, in the first film, Craven actually wore the costume during the opening murder scene, where the character is struck by a phone, and by Skeet Ulrich only once during the finale scene where the character prepares to murder Randy. Despite Stu wearing the costume in the film, actor Matthew Lillard never actually wore the outfit. Following the description in Williamson's script of a ghost mask, Craven and designers had originally intended to use a white motif, creating a white cloak and hood for the killer's costume. It was actually then at the intervention of producer Marianne Maddalena, who felt that the cloak would be scarier if it were black, and that resulted in the dark costume shown on screen. The cloak itself had to be custom made for the film, as the quote-unquote Father Death outfit identified in Scream as one of the killers did not really exist, and the Funworld mask was sold only as a standalone item. The cloak entered into retail markets only following the release of Scream. Each cloak was estimated to cost $700 to hand produce by a seamstress, and was made out of a heavy, thick black material with reflective threads woven throughout, creating a subtle glimmer on camera. Costume designer Cynthia Bergstrom said in regards to the fabric, "Wes originally wanted the robe to be white. We did tests and it just didn't work until one day we found the perfect fabric in a fabric store. It was a knit with a bit of stretch. The decision was simply that the light would catch the lurex thread that made it shine. There were no real challenges as I recall on set or in the construction of the garments. We performed several camera tests to make sure it would work, and lo and behold, it certainly did." The cloak idea was created to help conceal the identity of the killers by covering most of their visible bodies, as it was believed that audiences would be able to guess which character was involved by his or her clothing and body shape. Now, the knife used by Ghostface in the films is a custom knife based on the Buck 120 hunting knife, which has since been discontinued by its manufacturer. That's always the case. When us prop heads want to track down make and model things, they're always discontinued. Why? We'll give you the money! The real deal knife was used, but versions were made with blades of aluminium or chrome painted or coated plastic with a rubber handle, depending on the scenario for which they are needed. The handle is black with a silver metallic appearance for the tip. The Buck 120 knife was chosen as the model for Ghostface's weapon because of the large blade it features. Fun fact, this knife was also used on a few Friday the 13th posters. And finally, the boots. The original boots apparently were black Reebok box, and they were work boots. These things are extremely hard to find. So much so, I couldn't even seem to find a real good picture of the boots out in the wild. So screen grabs it is. Again, in an interview with Cynthia Bergstrom, she went on to say regarding the boots, "If my memory serves me correctly, the boots Billy wore to school and around the fountain were similar, but not the same as the killer's boots. We talked about the boots a lot in pre-production and all the subtle nuances that might or might not give away the killer's identity. I'm pretty sure they were not the same boots. And I've been asked a lot over the years as to the main killer's boots and what they were and where they came from, and to be perfectly honest, I don't recall. Best guess is they came from Sears. They might have been work boots from Sears." And there you have it, ghouls and ghoul. That's the origins of the original Ghostface costume from Wes Craven's Scream. Now, throughout the franchise, the costumes had differed for sure, including the boots, pants, what characters are supposed to be playing Ghostface at the time. The robes have always been custom made, but when it came to the masks, it was predominantly Funworld providing the masks for the franchise, with differing features from certain generation molds being used, as well as reissues. We've got the Easter Unlimited stamp versions and special edition masks. Now, again, I highly recommend going over to Douglas's Drowned Boy Productions channel because he has a very in-depth discussion about all the masks throughout his channel, especially breaking down each mask from each individual Scream film, because there is a massive lore going on with those Ghostface masks. It's quite incredible to learn about. All these elements combined to make a subtle but brutal looking killer. Let me know your favorite look of Ghostface down below, and until next time,
I'll be right back.